Today's video going to be replacing the motor on the Civic because it was crashed, and when we went to go try to start it up, first thing that stood out was the dipstick was cut. Then did troubleshooting, try to figure out what was going on, ended up checking the oil, and this is what we found. So it's supposed to be engine oil. Instead of trying to rebuild it, we're just going to replace it. So now we're going to go ahead and start taking everything off attached to the engine. I'm not going to go by no set order. I'm just going to go by whatever's attached to the engine and pull that out. Due to the accident, some stuff's already removed, like condenser, AC condenser, and radiators kind of semi-removed. And also up here, there's a plastic cowling that sits up here. You pull that off just by, it's only held in by tabs. And then there's a metal tray that sits under here, and that's held in by two 12s, a couple of 10s on here, a 10mm in the middle, and then two more 12s and two more 10s. Once all those bolts are removed, that tray just pulls right out, and now you have a lot more access to the engine. Since you're gonna have to drain the radiator, there's a petcock right there. You go ahead and unscrew that, drain the radiator from the bottom. Electrical connector, squeeze down, pull out. I'm gonna take out the battery, 10mm. I'm gonna go ahead and take out this MAF. On these vacuum tubes. 10mm for this lower intake box. Another 10mm right down here. Now plug this on the throttle body. On the throttle body, we're going to go ahead and push down on this tab. We're going to go ahead and take out this tube. Going to remove these heater core hoses. $10mm. Now we're going to start messing with the wires on the front. We're going to go ahead and take out this exhaust. First we're going to take out the heat shield, which is 10mm. Cut the wires because you need a low pro O2 sensor socket. So I just cut the wires because I'm just going to replace it. But I do have this strut 22mm that we're going to use to take it off. Four 12s hold the upper cat. Two 12s for this exhaust tube. There's two supports that hold the cat. There's a 14 right there and a 14 right there. Once you take those supports off, then you can take out the exhaust flange bolts, which are 12. One right there, and then on the other end of this bolt right here. So on the back side. Here's our main harness on top of the transmission. That comes up and then spreads out to everywhere it needs to. So we're going to go ahead and remove any connectors that are attached to the front end. You squeeze, pull up, and you have this connector right here. Press down, pull out. There's a connector down here. Once you do that, pull up on this tab, slides off its bracket, push down on this sensor, pull this out, pull out on this tab, slide it off the bracket. To minimize the risk of breaking these zip ties that go into brackets, we're just going to go ahead and take off the bracket, which is 2/10. So those are the connectors that are on the driver forward side. Now if we follow this harness down, we're going to go to our ignition coils. Follow this down, goes to our alternator, and also our AC compressor. Pull it off. Just clip, pull it up. Pull that one off. So now we just squeeze on these two little legs, pull them off the bracket, and we're going to leave this down here with the compressor. The power wire to the alternator is a 10mm. Now the harness, we're going to go ahead and pull back on this tab, slide it off. We're going to go ahead and unplug the ignition coils. Then we can take out the 10mm. Over here on the driver's side, you can see it's a slot. All you do is push it towards the driver, and this whole harness bracket can be swung out the way. On this stud right here, 19mm. Once you do that, you let it loose. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the AC compressor, 12mm. I'm going to go ahead and pull off this ground rod tab on this bracket, pull it up. Now following the wiring connections down here, got this electrical connector right here. Press and pull. The harness that holds this bracket, held on by a 10mm right behind this zip tie clip. The bracket that holds this hose is a 10mm. Right there where my finger is pointing, there's an upper bolt for the power steering pump. We're going to go ahead and take that off. Now we got to the point where we're going to have to jack up the car, put it on jack stands. We're going to go under. We're going to have to start messing in here in this little hole. So we're going to move this exhaust. There's 3/14 for the flange. $12mm for the brake hose. 10mm for the ABS wire. $32mm for the axle nut. 17mm bolt, 19mm nuts. Now with our axle out from the hub, we can go ahead and move it out of the way. And we could take it out of the transmission. Apparently I didn't record, but 8mm for this bracket. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put it back just so I don't lose it. Starter bolt. Once you unbolt the starter, there's two 10s right here you want to remove, which hold this bracket. And 12mm goes in here. You see where this sits. Once you take this out, you have more room with this wiring harness. You're going to want to remove this 8mm on the back side where you can't see, which holds this bracket, which holds this harness on. And once you remove that, the whole starter comes down and it'll be hanging off this power wire and this signal wire, and you can just hold it right here, unbolt it, which is a 12mm, and then just push and unplug. And then when you push those out of the way, which are right there already, you can go ahead and slide your starter down, and here you go, you just have everything sitting right here. To remove the harness from the engine, you push out, slide it out.
Push on it. You're gonna slide, long slide it. That'll be able to get under it. And pry that out.
When you follow this harness up, there's another green plug right here. Push towards the driver's side, there's a tab. And there you go. It's off. With this upholstery tool, all I did was get behind here, pry it out, get behind here, pry it out. And right there at that white plug, all you do is push it down and pull it out. There you go, pull it off. We can go ahead and pull it up. And there you go. Now with the harness pulled down from the bottom, we're going to go ahead and remove these two 10s. And we're going to have to remove it from the injectors. We're going to move these two 10s, which are the grounds for the harness. I'm going to pull out on this tab, slide the harness out. Then on the back side of the harness, there's one more plug. Pull it out. So right here is where the plug is behind the harness. I'm going to take off this coolant tube from the throttle body. Last thing is this vacuum hose. Now with that off, we're going to go ahead and unbolt the torque converter from the flex plate. Going to take off this axis cover, 3 10s. $10mm for the torque converter bolts. The flex plate is unbolted from the torque converter. Now we can go ahead and start getting our mount bolts. $17mm for the engine to trans mount. $17mm for the lower mounts. And while we're lifting the engine and everything, but I'm going to be checking periodically down here, making sure that the flex plate and the torque converter separate, so the flex plate doesn't just pull the torque converter out and then spill a bunch of fluid down. To be able to use this mount for a lift point, we got to move this dog bone outboard, and to do that we're going to loosen up this mount right here, 17mm. I use a bracket that used to hold a wiring harness. I remove the bolt, and I just got a longer bolt just to have more play. On this front end, I got a bolt that fit the thread. So in there, the right side is the torque converter nub, the left side is the flex plate. I had to use pry bars and also a ball joint fork, and I had to just keep spinning it, tapping it, spinning, tapping it, and eventually it broke loose, like you can see right there. Now that it is, we can go ahead and remove the engine from the trans. Also, to make room, after you remove the center bolt that holds the bracket that holds the engine to the mount, there's two more 14s. You can remove those. A 14 right there, and then one 14 down there in the bottom, and another one, and another one right there. So this whole mount moves, so you don't run into it with this tensioner. Now we can go ahead and remove it. And there you go. Here's the old one. And what I was referring to earlier is, you could see that wear mark. That's literally just the wear to try to remove the torque converter from inside of here of the flex plate. So you're gonna have to pry on it. Eventually it broke loose. And then you just want to make sure your torque converter is fully bottomed out. I'm gonna go over everything. If I run into anything, I'll record it, but all I'm gonna do is just swapping the good stuff over to the other one and making sure everything's good to go.